Okay, so once you get your characters ready, please make sure you clean it up first. Now, for this particular character done by Herb, we have some issues here because he's wearing all these long flowing robes. So later when we are rigging, when we are applying the bones and deforming, right, the robes will not deform properly and there are chances that the leg will penetrate these robes. But we're just gonna set it up first and then we're gonna see what happens. Now, most of you posed your characters like this. This will make it relatively easy to rig. And if you have a lot of subdivisions between the joints that are going to bend, it's going to make things easy as well. For example, I think there's sufficient edge loops here for the character to bend, and I think there's more than enough edge loops for the character to bend the fingers. Okay, but let's start out with something simple first. We're going to do the leg, alright? So make sure you position your character until his foot is lined up with the origin line here. And then you can go ahead and create the leg joints first. So we're going to create one leg joint. So you start from the hip, then go to the knee, again bend forward slightly. Okay, then go to the ankle, then down to the foot, and then another area like this. Okay, so once you're done, you just press enter. So this is what the bone looks like. Okay, press Alt B to change the background so that you can see a little bit clearer. So you start off from the hip to the knee, alright, the ankle, down to the foot, and then to the toe. So this is the leg bone. Now we need to position it, so I change it to the front view. So I'm going to select the root, then press W to move it, and then position it over the leg that you want to do it. Now some of you model your character with the legs spread slightly open. That is fine, okay, as long as you move the bones until it is completely enclosed within the mesh. Alright, so this is very important. Now if your bones, the size is too big, you can go to display, animation, joint size, and reduce the size of the joints. You do not want them to be too fat and big. Okay, just bring it down until they are nice and slim. Okay, it's also a good time to name your joints. So this is the left, I'm going to call this the left upper leg JNT. Then left, okay, I always put underscore, left underscore lower leg JNT. Okay, then this one I'm going to call anchor, left underscore ankle underscore JNT, left foot underscore JNT, and left underscore toe or JNT. Alright, so now I have the left foot. Okay, rather than creating the joints all over again, there's a tool which you can use to mirror the bones over to the other side. Now in order to make your rigging much easier and simpler, make sure that you position your mesh precisely at the center of the origin, so that when you mirror, the other mirror will fall precisely on the other half of your model. So select the joint, go to skeleton, and then choose the options mirror joints. Then if you click open the mirror joints options, there's this very powerful tool that allow you to rename, because currently we have this left in front of our joint. So we can actually change it to search for left and rename it with right. So I'm going to change left and then replace it with right. So what is going to happen is that this mirror joint options, this powerful tool here, is going to search for anything that has left in front and replace it with right. And what about this menu here, mirror across which plane? Make sure you choose the correct settings. Alright, make sure that you choose the, for this case here, I'm going to mirror the YZ plane. the YZ plane. So if you model your character facing the other direction, make sure you choose the right orientation. So I'm going to change it to, it's already set to YZ plane in this case, and I chose the option change left to right, and then you hit mirror. Okay, I need to select the joint first and then hit mirror. And true enough, right now I have two sets of bones hierarchy, and it has been renamed automatically for me, so you don't have to type and rename, because renaming and naming the joints is usually can be a chore, but unfortunately you have to go through that process. So now I have a pair of legs, okay, a pair of leg bones. The next thing I want to do is to create the spine. Okay, so I'm going to the right view again. Now spine, I'm going to start at the base of the spine and then draw upwards from bottom to the top, not top to the bottom. Remember, from the bottom, the base of the spine, to the top. So we're going to start from here, the base of the spine here. Then one bone about 1/3 of the way to the neck, another 1/3, another 1/3 to the chest, and finally one to the neck. Okay, if you want another extra bone for the head, you can go ahead and click to the top, and once you are done, you press enter. Okay, also name your spine properly. So I'm going to call this, so open up the hierarchy of the joints in your outliner and then name them accordingly. So the bottom, I'm going to call it base spine JNT. Okay, spine stool JNT, you can give it a number, spine 3 JNT. Next one is the neck JNT. This one is the head JNT. And finally the top, you can call it the head tip JNT. Okay, so now we have the spine. We got the legs, we got the spine. Obviously we don't have to mirror this spine because it doesn't have any mirror. Now we do the arms. Okay, so for the arms we need to start off from the base of the arm here and to the right. Now do not draw the arms in the front view like that. Make sure, because for your arms, right, if your character is standing up like that, standing up in the T-pose like this, which direction is it going to bend? The palms are going to bend forward, right, like that. Okay, so the best way to draw the bones is from the top view. So go to the top view and you can proceed to draw the arms, the arm joints. So go and click on create the joints. I'm going to start inside the base, inside the body. Click, then click on the elbow and click to the wrist, and we stop here and then press enter. This is just a simple arm joint. So notice that the arm joint is at the bottom. Okay, now press W and then move it until it is enclosed inside the shoulder. Now whatever you do, try not to move the joint in the front view. If you want to adjust the joint, adjust it only in the top view. For example, if you need to move the back of the elbow a little bit, adjust the wrist a little bit, okay, do it in the top view, even the base. And you notice something, when you adjust the base, the children will follow. It's just like a parent-child hierarchy. And if you adjust the joint, right, anything that is below that joint will follow it as well. So this type of adjustment takes some getting used to. So once you're done, you can go to the front view, but at any time in your front view, do not move. Okay, remember this, do not move. Otherwise, you'll change the orientation of your joint. Okay, I'm happy with this, so I'm going to leave it at that. So I'm going to rename this now. I'm going to call this joint left upper arm underscore JNT. Then left lower arm And then finally the tip, I'm going to call this left wrist, left underscore WRIST JNT. Okay, so now we apply the mirror again. Go to skeleton and then apply mirror joints. Because we already set replace left to right, okay, we just go ahead and then click on mirror, and then the right shoulder joints are now created. Okay, so I'm just going to temporarily hide this. Okay, hide the main mesh again. So now we have the spine, we have the shoulders. Now we need to do some parenting. We can do the parenting directly from here. Obviously the leg joints need to be parented to the base joint. So select the leg joints and select the parent here, which is the base spine here, and then press P. And every time you do a parenting, you notice that it will be automatically connected. Okay, for the shoulders, we're going to select the shoulders, and then we're going to join it to this neck joint here. Now before we do that, right, and in order for your character to deform nicely, we actually need to have another extra joint, which I did not create just now. So I'm going to create one more extra joint here. Just temporarily unhide. Okay, this joint is the clavicle. It will make the shoulder lift up and maintain the volume. So we need the extra joint there. And also I think I need to adjust my shoulder joint here. I felt that this one is going in a little bit too deep, so I'm going to push this forward a little bit. Okay, and going to my top view and readjust again. Put back the shoulder here. I'm going to delete away my right joint because I'm going to re-mirror it again. And this time I'm going to create another joint here to act as a clavicle. Now all you need to do is just create one single joint. Just click on it, one joint, and then press enter. For this one, let me see, it should be rotating, yeah, in the front view. So create this joint in the front view. Okay, then I'm going to call this the left clavicle joint. Okay, this is the left clavicle joint. The left clavicle joint will be the parent. This joint will be the parent of this shoulder joint. So I'm going to select this joint, select the clavicle, and then press P. Okay, so that later we can animate this part here. Alright, so now we have this entire hierarchy which we can duplicate to the other side. So we can use the mirror again, skeleton, and then mirror the joint. And then we can continue to parent these two to the neck joint. Then press P. Oops, select wrong joint, should be this joint. Select the child, and then this joint, and then press P. So now all your basic skeleton is created. The only thing we have not created yet is the hands. Okay, but before we do the hand bones, let's do some basic rigging first. We need to create the IK for the legs and the arms. So I'm going to, now before I do that, let me just do an experiment. I'm going to delete away the right joint, and I'm just going to set up the IK first. So go ahead and create the IK. Make sure your IK is the rotational joint version, the pole axis version. So let me just verify. Okay, it's the rotate plane solver version. Okay, that's what I want. So go ahead and create it. Select the root of the leg bone and then the ankle. And now it's working. Okay, the reason why I deleted the other one is I want to try to use the mirror and then see whether I will mirror the controllers as well. So I'm going to grab this leg bone here and I'm going to mirror again. Okay, so yeah, I successfully mirrored it, and it also included the controller for me, so I don't have to do double job. Okay, so now I have the controllers done for me. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to get rid of this clavicle hierarchy here, and I'm going to do the controller, IK controller. So select. Now make sure you choose the right bone. Do not choose the clavicle, but choose the upper arm, upper joint, and then the tip. Okay, like that, so that you will bend nicely like this. Okay, make sure you do a test, make sure that they bend nicely. Okay, once you've done this, you can select the entire joint here, then go and mirror. Okay, so now the other side should have, no, this one doesn't have. Okay, let me undo that again. I'm going to select this only from the upper arm and then mirror again. Okay, it works now, however, it is being parented to the wrong bone. Okay, let me just undo that, and since it's giving me the offset, I'm just going to manually recreating it again. So I'm just select this, select the clavicle bone and mirror. Oops. Okay, and I'm going to repeat the IK handle again. So select the upper bone here and then the tip, and then we get the same thing here. Okay, right now you see that we have 4 IK handles now. We got one IK handle at the bottom for the foot, and then the 2 IK handles for the hands. So for the foot IK handle, make sure you name them accordingly. So this is the left foot IK handle. This is the right foot IK handle. This is the left hand IK handle. Okay, this is just makes it easier for you to find and select when you're in the outliner. You all might find that, oh, renaming this is a chore and all that, but trust me, once you have everything named nicely, it will help you, especially in rigging as well. Okay, so we have this basic rig now set up. Now we have to create the controllers. Okay, now because we are not going to animate this, we're going to create this more for posing. I'm not going to create a very complex rig here. So the first thing you need to create for the controllers is this big main controller using a NURBS curve. So go to NURBS primitive and then create a circle and go right ahead and scale the circle until it's encompassing the entire character. And then I'm going to call this controller. Okay, just give it a name for the controller. So when you duplicate it, right, everything else will be controller 1, 2, 3. It makes it easier to rename later on. So we got one controller done. Select this controller and go and freeze the transformation so that everything becomes 0, 0, scale becomes 1, 1, 1. Press Ctrl D to duplicate and move this controller up and scale it down slightly. Okay, we need a controller to be able to control the position of the hip. So again, I'm going to rename this controller. I call this hip controller. And same thing, go and freeze the transformations so everything becomes 0, 0 and 1. But before you do that, please snap the location to the hip location. So observe how I do this. Okay, go to move, holding down the V, middle mouse click and drag until it snaps to the center of this joint. Okay, then we're going to create 4 more controllers, actually 4, 5, 6, about 6 more controllers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 controllers. So using the same circle, I'm going to create one more controller here. This is for the spine. I'm going to move this right here, snap, and call it the spine controller. And I'm going to create a couple of controllers for the hands using the same curve, but I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees, and I'm going to snap it to this bone, this joint here. Move and then middle mouse click and snap it here. Make this one smaller a bit. Okay, Control D, duplicate another one, then move it to the other side, V, and then snap it until you got another controller here. Again, go and freeze the transformation for the controllers. This step is very important. Make sure you do that. Freeze transformation. Then you're going to create two controllers for the foot. I'm going to use a slightly smaller NURBS curve now. Bring it back down. Then I'm going to scale it until it becomes like an oval, so I can encompass the foot. Create two. Go ahead and freeze transformation. Okay, now we got so many controllers, it's best that you name them, otherwise you don't know which is which. So this is the left hand CTRL. Okay, short form for control. Right hand CTRL, left foot CTRL, and right foot CTRL. Okay, now we are missing the elbow and the knee controllers. For that, we're going to draw a simple arrow. Okay, to draw the arrow, go and create NURBS. Okay, go to the NURBS primitives. Okay, right now we can't create the under the curve tools, right? I want you to choose the EP curve tool. But before you choose it, go to the option box and change it, the options, right, to linear. Your default is cubic, but I want you to change to linear. And turn on the snap on grid so that you can draw a arrow shape like that. So you can click on the boxes, and then now I got this arrowhead. So this I can use to determine the orientation of the knee and the elbow. Now the center is located here, so I'm gonna center the pivot first, and I'm gonna call this the left knee CTRL. Okay, go to your perspective view. I'm going to turn off the snap this time and position the controller until it's directly in front of the knee. Okay, if you feel your controller is too big, you can make it smaller. Okay, and then freeze transformation. Now duplicate this one, Control D, then move it to the other side, and then call this one the right knee control. Okay, we're going to take two of these controls, we're going to duplicate them again, Shift Control D. Okay, move them up to the elbow level until they are at the elbow level. Then push them back and then rotate them 180 degrees. And rename them, call this the left elbow control, and then this one is the right elbow control. Okay, point the arrows in the other side, so set them until they are pointing directly behind or at the elbow like this. Okay, once you have this done, go and freeze transformation. Always remember the freeze transformation. Okay, so now we are ready to apply the constraints. Now the only thing that I have not created right now for the bones are the hands. So maybe I'll just do the hands quickly. Let me turn on the mesh again. For the hands, we'll start off by going to the side view, or rather in this case going to the front view, because the side view of the hand is the front view. So you need to determine how many joints you need for your finger. If you look at your own finger, you can count from the tip, the middle part of the finger, the base. There's actually 3 joints. Okay, 3 joints. So you start from the base of the hand and you draw 3 joints. So we're going to do for one finger first. And then after that we will duplicate. So we got 1 joint done. Okay, the good thing about modeling a hand open up like this is that it makes rigging a little bit easier later on. If your fingers are close to one another, you're going to have some issues orienting them properly. So remember, create your hands in the front view, side view first, then go to the top view to orient and adjust them. So now I got this joint. So I position it. You can select individual joint from the top view, moving the joint until they match the deformation area. And then the tip, you can just move it forward. So once you have this joint, you can press Ctrl D, duplicate another one. Then in the top view, rotate it to the correct orientation until it matches your finger joint. Ctrl D again. Now in order to save time, right, I'm not gonna name the individual joints, but of course I highly recommend that you guys go and name your joints accordingly. Okay, adjust your joints until they fit. Ctrl D again to duplicate. Then finally you get all your joints in place. Okay, then of course you still have the thumb. I'm gonna control duplicate this and then use it for the thumb. Now the thumb is going to be unique because the bone actually goes in quite a bit. Okay, make sure you are in the correct orientation. And in the front view, right, you might need to actually rotate it downwards. Okay, you might need to rotate the individual bone until it matches the orientation. Okay, so once you have all these done already, okay, I'm going to hide the mesh again. You have the finger bones, the thumb, everything done nicely. What you're going to do is you're going to select the base of all these bones and you're going to parent it to the tip, the wrist bone here, the wrist joint here. So select the root of all the finger joints and then select the wrist joint and then press P. Okay, so what does this mean? That means I have to do the same thing for the other side. So I'm going to select all the joints and I'm going to mirror them. Okay, unfortunately I already let me just undo the parenting first. I'm just going to mirror another set of bones and mirror the joints. Okay, what does this say? I couldn't mirror all of them together. Okay, never mind. So I'm going to parent them again. Press P. Now I'm going to select this joint and then try to mirror it. Okay, and then skeleton, and then I'm going to mirror the joints. So now you notice there's this strange reaction going on. It's still being parented to this joint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this joint here, this mirrored hand joint, and then I'm going to unparent it. I think it's this one. Yep. Now to unparent this one, I'm going to middle mouse click and drag, until there is an empty space here, and then release. Okay, it's still being parented. I'm going to pull it out until it's no longer parented, until it's an independent joint, and I can manually move this all the way here. Okay, I'm going to select this right wrist joint here. I'm going to delete it away. I couldn't delete it away. I need to unparent all these joints first. Middle mouse click and drag and unparent it first. Okay, now I have this floating right wrist. I can delete it away. So select the joints and you parent it to this joint instead. Now before I do that, I'm going to unhide my mesh and then make sure that all these joints are positioned correctly. On the other side, so make sure your joints are in the correct location. Okay, then I can finally select the right joint and then press P. Parent it to the correct joint instead. So now I have all my finger joints all created. Now I'm not going to create controllers for the fingers, okay, because if you guys gonna pose a fist or whatever, you can actually directly rotate the bones to get the pose. Okay, so now I got all my finger bones all created, and we need to set up the IK constraints. Okay, so far the only thing to move the bones is using the IK controllers, but we want the IK controllers, right, to be controlled by the controllers. So using your constraint, open up your constraint menu. Okay, I'm going to start with the foot first. So for this simple one, I'm just going to select the foot controller first, master, and then the slave, which is the IK controller, and then I'm going to use a parent constraint. And open up your parent constraint, make sure you turn on maintain offset and apply. Okay, do the same thing for the other side, apply. So that now when I select the controller, it will control the IK controller. Right, and for the pole vector, for the knee, select the left pole vector controller or the left knee control, then shift select the left leg IK control, and then apply pole vector. Do the same thing for the right, select the controller first, the master, then select the IK handle, and then click on pole vector. Now if you find it very difficult to select, if you have renamed everything nicely in the outliner, it's easier for you to pick out from them. So if you never rename them, then it's going to be a headache. That's why renaming is always very important. I'm going to do the same for this controller here. So we got the wrist controller here, the left hand controller. We're going to make the left hand controller the master of the IK handle. So we select the left hand controller first, then shift select the IK handle, then click on parent. Then the elbow controller, you select the elbow left hand controller, then select the left IK controller of the hand, and then select the pole vector. For the other side, I'm going to do the same. So right hand controller, shift select the IK right hand controller, and then apply a parent, and then we're going to do the pole vector. Select the right elbow pole vector controller, then shift select the IK hand controller and apply the pole vector. Now you can test by moving up and down and see that you can actually control the elbow, and if you grab the handles, you can adjust the posing of the handle. Okay, I can move this down and then everything should work nicely. Okay, so the reason why we set all the controllers just now earlier on when we freeze the transformation, so that we have all the 0 values. So this is the default values. If you accidentally pose your character in the wrong way, you can always change the value to 0, 0. It will move back to its original default location. That is why it's very important to set your controller freeze your controller transformation so that it goes to 0. Okay, this one I did not freeze the transformation, so I'm going to try to fix this again. Tell you what, I'm just going to leave it as it is for now. I'm going to push this forward a bit, and then I'm going to try to refreeze this again and see whether this works. Freeze the transformation. Okay, it doesn't work. Now I mess up my knee controller. So I'm going to get rid of the knee controller for this controller first. Pull vector, you can select the pull vector constraint here and then delete it away, so I can reset this again because it was not pointing the right way, the way I want it. Okay, so I'm gonna freeze this right knee controller. So we're gonna do the same thing again. So select this and then shift select the right foot controller, and then we're going to do a constraint pull vector, and now it should be fine. Okay, there's still a bunch of constraints we still need to do. We need to constrain the main controller, or rather the main joint, to this big controller here, the hip controller. So select the master, the hip controller first, then shift select the hip, and then do a parent constraint. So now when I grab the parent and then move it around, okay, because we have a constraint, everything should move nicely. Now I do not want the wrist or the hand, right, to flop around like this. So I'm going to use a few more constraints for the wrist. So for example, I'm going to control the orientation of my the wrist joint. So I'm going to select the left wrist, right, I'm going to control the orientation of this left wrist. So I'm going to use it to orient with this controller. So select the controller first, then locate your left wrist, because we already, let me try to identify which one is it first. I'm going to reselect it again. Okay, so it's here. This is the left wrist. So select the left controller, then shift select the left wrist. Under the outliner, you must press Control, not Shift. Okay, so then apply a orient. We're going to do the same thing for the other wrist. So where is the wrist? With here. Okay. So select the controller first, then Control select the wrist, then apply a orient. So now the hand, when I move the rest of the body around, the hand will always follow the orientation of this controller. Okay. Okay, this controller should work now. Okay, yeah. One more last step is to adjust the orientation of the hip so that you can, right now if I rotate the hip, right, the whole body rotates like this. If I want him to do the twerking action, right, I will force this bone to follow the orientation of this controller. So select this controller, shift select this spine, and then force it to follow the orientation. So now when I rotate, you can do this kind of action. Okay, the whole spine will not bend with the lower part. And then if you want both of them to rotate, you have to select both of them at the same time to rotate. Okay. And then I think I'm going to do a point constraint to this main controller. Main controller point constraint, this one. Point constraint only constrain position, but it doesn't constrain rotation. So I'm going to maintain offset and then apply. So right now if I were to move this, it follows, but if I rotate, it doesn't follow. This is what it means. Okay, I know that there's a lot of steps, so but if you are not sure, just rewind and watch this again. I think pretty much our rig is done. Now this is a simple rig. I didn't even bother about applying any fancy controllers to the foot. Okay, and I think at this stage we can start to apply the skin. Okay, so I can save this first. Okay, and then turn on the mesh. So to simply apply the skin, you just select the mesh and shift select the joints, select both together, and then apply the skin. Now if you apply the skin right now, you're going to have a problems with the rope here. So we're just going to go ahead and apply it, skin, and then bind skin. Going to use the default values. And then now you can test the controllers. Select the controllers. You can see now. Okay, Herb, can you see the problem? Actually, if it's not a very extreme pose, this thing will still work. Okay, but you see very unnatural, as I said. It's a force field pushing the cloth up like that. Yeah, because the cloth is not really touching his body. You get it? But actually, and also because you got so much cloth covering, right? It covers your knee collapsing. No one can really tell. So, okay, once you got your controller, you can also rotate. Okay, right now I did not constrain the orientation to the controller, so the foot is not really bending. Okay, actually I can apply that now. Now if you want the rotation, right, to follow this controller, you can select this controller, then shift select this joint, and then apply a Orient controller, so that now if I rotate this, okay, I forgot, this one is being controlled by this controller. Now I cannot do that. I can only orient this bone here. Okay, so select this, shift select this, and then Orient joint. So at least now this joint, okay, I don't think I did it properly yet. Well, at least you can manually pose the control. You can trigger these controls to change the position. Okay, so this part still works, but the problem will come like this. When you move the joint up like that, you can see your legs, right? This mesh part here is being influenced by the other joint, and vice versa. Okay, so that's why we need to do something called weight painting. Let's test the arms out. Okay, it seems to work alright, but you can see there's a collapse under the armpit there. Notice the collapse here. So we need to paint the weight so that this bone doesn't influence this area so much. So if your character is perfectly symmetrical, right, then you don't really have to worry too much about it. We can select the head joint and rotate it, and you see we have a problem here. Okay, because the neck, right, is also influencing a huge part of the body. Okay, the clavicle position is also not in the right position. So I expected the clavicle to like do this. The clavicle is needed so that you can animate things like shrugging. Okay, but I think we can leave it for now. Yeah, but it still works. You can do the shrug. You can manually select the bones and then do the shrug. Okay, let's do the hip sway. Okay, and then you can do this as well. The upper controller is too small already. I'm just gonna select. Okay, I should have made this a little bit bigger. I see whether I can scale this bigger. Yes, I can. So good. So this one I can change the orientation, the upper part. So pretty much this is rigged now, but here comes the tedious part, which is the skin weight painting. Now if I were to complete the whole skin weight painting, it's going to take too long, so I'm just going to show you quickly how this works. So select the skin, go to skin, and then enable the paint skin weights. If you want to open up the paint skin weights window, you double click on it and you should be able to see the menu. Okay, to access it, the paint skin weights, you must click on the icon here. Okay, and if you look at the menu here, because we take the effort to name our joints one by one, it is easier to find out which joint is affecting what. And whenever which joint has a problem, right, you can straight away click on the joint to find it. If you do not name your joint, everything will be joint 01, 02, 03, 04, and so on. So you don't know which is which. That's why I recommend that you guys name all your joints so you know what they are. Okay, so it makes it very, very easy for me now to figure out what's wrong. So, of course, to see the influence, you need to press number 6 in your viewport. And when you double click on the joint editor, you must first select the joint that you want to, let's say, affect. Okay, currently mine is set to paint. Okay, I need to select the mesh first. Yeah, select the mesh and then you click on the skin weights. Then you can see the individual influence of the weights. So I'm going to close all these additional windows. So this is the base spine. The base spine is affecting this area. Upper spine, oh sorry, the upper, this is the left leg joint, lower leg joint, and so on. So for if you do not want the left leg to affect the right leg, okay, first you go to the paint and then you adjust the weight. Right now the default is 1. If I paint 1, that means it's going to affect at maximum value. You can see a little bit of gray here. Now if you want to switch, if you want to flip the influence, you hold down to your control key. When you press the control key, you notice the paint becomes inverted. So rather than adding influence, you are removing influence. Now to remove influence, you paint over the crosshatch area. That means you paint over the vertex area. If you paint over the face, right, there is no reaction at all. So you want the most reaction, you paint over the cross. So now you can see it turns black. Everything that turns black means there is no influence by that particular bone. So for example, I do not want my left leg to be affecting the right part of this rope. So you just hold down to the control key and left mouse to paint out the influence. Okay. Now this is only the upper part of the joint. If you go to the upper leg, or rather the lower part of the joint, if you click on the upper leg joint, see this is the upper leg joint, the influence. So you need to again paint out the influence so that it doesn't affect the right leg. Okay, everything left only affects everything on the left. Okay, so because Herb's character, right, is covered with the rope, I find it a bit difficult to access the other side. Okay, so once I've done a little bit of this fixing, right, I can test out by grabbing the controller and then test out the deformation again, see whether is it still affecting. Notice the right heel, right, is still being affected by some other bone. It might not be these two bones. It might be the foot bone or it might be the toe bone. So that means you have to go through every single bone to fix. Alright. Now you can try to do one half first, and you can try to use the skin and then you can mirror skin weights. You can do that. You can try that, see whether that works or not. Okay, but sometimes this thing works, sometimes it doesn't. Okay, so sometimes you might end up painting every single bone yourself. Okay, but you can try this one to see whether it works or not. But for the mirror skin weights to work, your character must be a perfect mirror. Okay, so that's the condition. So I will not go through the entire process. I think I covered quite a lot. This is a very, very long demonstration also. So I think the setting up the bones, that one is very complex. So if you are not sure, you can watch this video again. Alright, the application for all the other characters should be the same. So once everything, the weights, everything is painted nicely already, you can start to pose your character. Right, pose it down. Now I did not even bother about the fingers, because the fingers, I can tell you, is going to have a lot of problems. But actually for Herb's one, it turned out to be fine because his fingers are quite separated. For those of you, right, who model your fingers almost close, right, then you have a big problem. You can see that the bones will start to affect the other finger. Okay, so if you want to create a fist, you select all the bones individually, select one by one. You must do it one by one, and then go to rotate. Then you can see, close it. Show you one more time. Select the finger bone one by one. One by one. You cannot select the root. Select one by one. Shift select, then go to rotate, and then choose the right axis. Now you can close the hand. Same thing for the thumb. And close. Okay, but you can see there's a lot of skin problem, right, which you need to fix. So for the hands to work properly, you must really position your bones really nicely. Let me just create a fist first for this character. In fact, I'm going to select all of them at the same time. Okay, so now he's got a fist. Not a very nice looking one, but because the skinning is still not done properly yet. But at least you can do some basic poses out of this guy. And of course, you can see the elbow is collapsing very weirdly. You need to paint the weights here. Painting the weights, right, will control how much each bone influence each area. So if I open up the skin weights again, and because I named my, see, I name my bones properly, I know which one to access faster. If you never name it, it's very, very difficult to identify which is which. So you can see here it's collapsing quite a lot, so I'm going to reduce the influence by painting a 0 value so that the forearm bone doesn't affect. Okay, then I'm going to go to upper arm. I don't want the upper arm to also affect the front. So this will take quite a while. Some of you might prefer using the Wacom pad to do this. Okay, but now the arm is looking slightly better. I wouldn't say it's fixed, but it's slightly better. Okay, so the weight painting alone and all this, right, will probably take you a few days. The rigging, the weight painting will take you a few days to get done properly. Okay, I think I shall stop here because this video is way too long now.